All right, let's jump right in. In this explainer, we're breaking down the math, the mindset, and honestly, the brutal psychology behind truly building long-term wealth. I want you to imagine, right now, pushing a giant boulder up a mountain. And I don't mean a cute little rock you can kick around. I am talking about a 2-ton slab of solid granite. You're throwing your entire body weight against it. Your muscles are absolutely screaming. You're drenched in sweat, and you look back after an hour only to realize you've moved it maybe 12 feet. Well, that grueling, exhausting effort, that is exactly what the beginning of your financial journey feels like. Look, if you've ever checked your investment accounts and just felt this overwhelming wave of frustration, I completely validate that. You save diligently for 3 years, you log in expecting to feel like a financial genius, and their balance is, 19 grand? Meanwhile, a coworker who started 10 years ago casually mentions his portfolio went up $47,000 while he was literally sitting on a beach. It makes you want to throw your laptop right out the window. During those early years, saving feels way less like building wealth and more like stuffing cash into a mattress that's slowly deflating. But I assure you, what you're experiencing isn't failure. It is simply physics. So it really all comes down to 2 distinct phases of your financial life. First, we have the push phase. This is where you are manually shoveling your hard-earned money into the market. You are doing 100% of the heavy lifting. But eventually, you reach the snowball phase. This is where the momentum of the market finally takes over, gravity actually stops fighting you, and that boulder starts rolling down the other side of the mountain completely on its own. Which brings us to part 1, that early phase struggle from zero to your first $100,000. This initial phase, it's typically a grueling 5 to 7 year period. And you know what? It's actually designed to be difficult. Your legs are shaking and you're sweating just to move that boulder a few inches. It's supposed to feel impossible right now because all of the growth is coming entirely from your own brute force. I mean, think about the math early on. Let's say you have $5,000 invested and the market has an absolutely incredible year, returning 10%. You just made $500. That's a really nice dinner out for sure, but it is not life-changing. It feels mathematically useless. Your brain registers that you did all the hard work and your money is just sitting there judging you. But this is the exact moment where extreme patience is required. And sadly, it's exactly where most people just give up. But here is where it gets incredibly fascinating. It's amazing how the time frames compress drastically if you just stay consistent. For the average person, it takes about 8 grueling years of extreme discipline to hit that first 100 grand. But think about the next milestone. Getting from 100,000 to 200,000 takes only about 5 years. You are making the exact same contributions you always were, but the math has visibly changed sides. And that leads us perfectly into part 2, crossing the activation point. $100,000. We're talking about a magical threshold where the angle of the mountain finally shifts. Why does this matter so much? Because suddenly gravity starts helping you out. A 10% market return doesn't give you a measly $500 anymore. It drops $10,000, literally the price of a highly reliable used car, straight into your account without you lifting a single finger. The compounding that was practically invisible for a decade is now showing up in a massive way. Now welcome to part 3, the pure speed of compounding. Once you pass that activation threshold, the compounding becomes highly mechanical. The velocity of your wealth generation starts to get completely, wonderfully absurd. Think about a $500,000 portfolio in a strong market year. You might have rigorously saved $15,000 from your paycheck. But the market? The market just earned you $80,000. This abstract collection of businesses you own tiny pieces of just completely out-earned your physical day-to-day labor by a massive margin. There's this brilliant quote that hits the nail on the head. Financial independence starts the moment your assets generate more than your labor. People so often think financial freedom is just for tech bros or lottery winners. It's really not. It is simply that beautiful crossover point where your portfolio becomes a highly reliable second income stream. And the best part, that income stream never takes a vacation and it absolutely never calls in sick. But hold on, because part 4 is absolutely crucial. Avoiding the sabotage traps. Because the most agonizing part of wealth building actually isn't that early pushing phase. It's avoiding the overwhelming temptation to trade your financial velocity for comfort right when it matters the most. The irony here is just brutal. You spend a decade living like you're broke, driving a beat-up old car, and you finally hit $600,000. Suddenly your brain goes, hey, I made it. So what do? You buy the dream house, you finance a luxury car, and you instantly inflate your lifestyle costs by 40%. You just kneecapped your own exponential growth. You were right at the point where the boulder was rolling downhill, and you decided to just sit on it. Let's put some real, visceral numbers to this. If you have a $1.5 million portfolio and you decide to withdraw $100,000 for a massive purchase, you aren't just spending $100,000 today. Over 20 years, assuming a 7% return, that money would have turned into nearly $400,000. By breaking the seal, you are literally robbing your future self of exponential compounding. And it's not even just lifestyle creep. There's this really sneaky psychological trap where we try to get clever. You hit 7 figures and suddenly think you need to be doing something fancy, like buying a rental property. But instead of leveling up, you often end up trading a simple, boring, perfectly automated compounding machine, like the S&P 500, for a second job dealing with tenants, water leaks, and property taxes. Most of the time, it's really just self-sabotage dressed up as ambition. The bottom line is perfectly captured right here. The portfolio doesn't care about your feelings. It only cares about time and contributions. The market literally does not care if you're exhausted. It doesn't care that you feel you deserve a reward for a decade of hard work. The absolute necessity of extreme patience means you cannot touch the snowball. Breaking that seal and withdrawing money completely resets your momentum. Which ultimately brings us to part 5, finding the true meaning of freedom. If you can survive those boring phases and just leave the machine alone, you eventually face the final existential boss of financial independence. This is the phase where you actually have to figure out what you want your life to look like when money is no longer the main character in your story. Think about the famous 4% rule. If you have $1.5 or $3 million, a 4% withdrawal rate means you are mathematically free to stop working. You have successfully built a machine that generates wealth while you sleep. Yet, so many people hit this number and keep grinding away at their jobs out of pure terror of market crashes, or honestly, simply because they don't know what else to do with themselves. And that right there triggers a massive identity crisis. If you've spent 30 years defining yourself entirely by your productivity and your corporate role, walking away feels like erasing yourself. The absolute hardest part of this journey isn't the math. It is sitting on a life-changing pile of money and suddenly realizing that a massive portfolio cannot fix a lack of personal purpose. So what's the actual game plan to survive all of this? First, automate everything and contribute consistently to get through that agonizing early push phase. Second, maintain a simple lifestyle and absolutely do not touch the snowball once it starts rolling. And finally, and this is so important, while you are grinding, you must actively build a life, hobbies, and relationships outside of your work. I want to leave you with a deeply provocative question to think about. If your financial number stops mattering today, have you built a life worth living without it? True freedom isn't just about accumulating a massive bank balance. It's the absolute luxury to live on your own terms, according to your deepest desires, completely free from financial anxiety. Remember, ultimate success comes from remaining fiercely consistent during the most boring parts of the financial journey. Keep pushing that boulder, stay patient during the dull phases, and build a life you actually want to live. Thanks so much for joining me in this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.